Last week we learned this. Rock beats are characterized by a doubling of pulse from the kick and snare to the hi-hat. Another way that the top part gets referred to a lot, since it could be played in either the hi-hat or the ride cymbal, is the right hand, since pretty much all right-handed drummers anyway use their right hand for this part. But now let's catch this beat on guitar. First thing I think when I hear this beat is power chords. Power chord voicing rhythmically fits really nicely with the fast pulse. At this point, we've also referred to the fast pulse as the hi-hat or ride cymbal part or the drummer's right hand. I'm feeling a little 1-4-1-5 progression, and I'm going to play it all root 6 string so I can get some nice slides up and down the neck. Now for the slow pulse or the kick and snare part, the simplest possible thing that I can think of to start with is just to take all 4 strikes of the slow pulse and play the same chord voicing symmetrically. In the notation, I've kept the fast pulse above, on top, and it's easy to see that the basis of the fast pulse is the drummer's right hand and the basis of the slow pulse is the kick and snare. Even something that seemed boring and super simple can sometimes be great. A lot of the time, it's a great idea just to let the beat do the work and get out of the way a little bit. Something that jumps right out at me on this beat is to capture some of the essence of the 2 different sounds of kick and snare in the slow pulse guitar part. So I can do this by playing a single bass note in place of the kick, and then a very staccato, which means very short, strike of a triad chord on the top strings of the guitar on the 2nd and 4th beat, where the snare usually plays, and we'll just call it the 2 and 4 for short. When you do this, when you play a staccato part on the 2 and 4, it's called a chop or a chuck, and according to Wikipedia, it can also be called a skank, although I personally wouldn't get caught calling it that. Another idea is to leave off the kick drum part of the slow pulse entirely and just play the chuck. Turns out you don't really need that kick drum part on the 1st and 3rd beat, or what we call the 1 and 3, in order to feel that slow pulse. The first beat of the measure is called the downbeat, and it's the strongest beat there is. And the 3rd beat is the 2nd strongest. In fact, the 1st and 3rd beats are collectively known as strong beats, whereas the 2nd and 4th beats are known as weak beats. So it turns out you can just take them away, the 1st and 3rd. They're so strong that you can feel them without them even being there. So the chuck alone will do the work of making that feeling of the slow pulse. One last idea for today is to play what's generally called pads in the slow pulse part. I think of pads as a note or a chord that's struck once and sustained, usually for at least 2 beats, if not several measures. The pad usually is played on the downbeat or sometimes on the third beat as well, but usually on the strong beats. And in this case, we're going to do it on the 1 and 3. Now what you may notice and feel right away is we've lost our slow pulse feel. Those weak beats, 2 and 4, are just too weak to be felt if they're not played. But we can use a modified fast pulse part and put an accent that corresponds to the weak beats in a new fast pulse part. I've also gone ahead and included for you the stems of every single recorded part that we touched on today, as well as all the sheet music, so you could go into GarageBand and mix and match to discover new variations and layer guitars on your own. Stay tuned, because next week we're going to start talking about melody and what melody to add to this.